AskReddit Daily. Old people of Reddit, what are some challenges kids today who romanticize the past would face if they grew up in your era? If you missed an episode of the TV show you liked, you were out of luck. I was 5. Instead of coming right home after school, I played with a friend. When I got home, I said I'm ready to watch Calamity Kate, and my mom said it's over. You have to be here when it's on. They don't wait for me? No, they should. Lol, thank you Netflix for waiting for me. That's why TV shows at the time were structured in a way so that it didn't matter much if you missed an episode here or there. Probably not a coincidence that this begins to change round about the same time that DVRs started to become a thing. Dying in Vietnam for no real reason. I kinda feel like the whole getting a letter in the mail at 18 and getting sent into actual goddamn battle thing trumps the rest of this thread. My dad told me terrible stories about watching the draft lottery on TV and praying your number didn't literally come up. In Australia, for reference. My dad told me that the day before and after his birthday came up in the lottery. I couldn't even imagine that feeling. If you need information on something, you walk or ride your bike to the library, go to the card catalog and search fruitlessly for an hour, then go ask the librarian for help. Check out the book and go home, read it. Don't forget to return it or you'll have a fine. This really is one of the most fundamental changes for me. I don't think people that have grown up with Google always grasp what a gigantic pain in the ass doing research used to be. I graduated from university as a translator in 1995, and I used to spend literally hours poring over technical dictionaries trying to find the correct translations for legal texts or oil industry manuals or whatever. Nowadays it's rare to spend more than a minute looking online before you find the information you need, even if you're working on some super obscure subject. I remember doing a school project as a kid, and after days of visiting multiple libraries having only one book and a magazine article to work off. Although the trade-off nowadays is I'll find several sources in 2 minutes flat online. Spend the next 2 hours trying to out if they're reliable sources and then realize I've spent another 3 hours procrastinating on TV tropes. 3 channels on a shitty TV. If the president was speaking, you were screwed. I remember Watergate mainly because it preempted the Flintstones and Gilligan's Island for a fricking month. Old bastards like me romanticize staying outside all the time, but we did that because if you were inside, your dad was using you as his personal remote control to flip channels. That's honestly kinda hilarious. Reminds me of when I woke up one Sunday expecting to find the usual cartoons only to find all the channels showing the news that Princess Diana had died. Landline phones and having to talk to a girl's parents to get her on the phone was terrifying. Not cute or fun, it sucked. My dad was apparently shit scary, or so I heard from a guy who chickened out on calling me. The first girl who gave me her number, when I called for the first time her dad answered and I shit bricks and hung up on him. I had to talk myself into calling again. After a few minutes I called back and her dad answered again. Haha, hello, is Haley there? Met up with her and kissed and played with her titties over her shirt. Next time I called, her dad answered again and I hung up and never spoke to her again. This is beautiful. Getting lost anywhere with no phone to guide you out. Getting an address without any clue on where exactly it is and getting shitty directions from who you ask. Getting directions with landmarks. Turn left by the rundown shack and right at the giant dead tree. I'm Aussie and my city had a map book that was updated every year. My end of the world was also developing fast. God help you if someone gave you a new address that wasn't in your book. On the upside, I can navigate like a boss. Our porn was in magazines we kept in the woods. Edit. I forgot about the one videotape that got passed around amongst 6 or so kids. We had one, a Playboy stash. Went back there when I was in college just to see if it was still there. A teenager came running up through the woods yelling thieves as if to summon his friends. We recognized each other. He was one of the very little kids from the playground, all grown up. He looked confused and backed away. I never saw him again. He was the guardian of the stash all those years. Now the responsibility passes to you since you conquered the stash. Why was this a thing in every community? No indoor plumbing. You get to use an outhouse which is freezing in the winter and stinks to high heaven in the summer. Water comes from a well, dispensed by a hand pump. Want a hot bath? Carry bucket after bucket of water to be heated on the stove. End up with a tepid bath. Then you have empty the wash tub with a bucket, so you had to carry the water twice. I lived this only by visiting my grandmother in rural Nova Scotia. One light bulb in the house, kitchen, and a cast iron stove which was used to boil water, a bucket or kettle at a time, to fill the bathtub that would be placed in the middle of the kitchen floor. The outhouse was a two-holler, but at least it was one with two doors. I don't mean to romanticize it, only report it. I wouldn't choose this. Two-holler, like side by side number 1 and number 2, bottom story and upper story? Bottom and upper is a level of hell I hope never exists. When you get news a movie is coming out that you are anticipating, and having to wait to see the trailer in the actual movie theater during previews to get a first glimpse at it. In our little one-stop light town it wasn't a guarantee that the movie you were hoping for would even make it to your theater, or show up for 2 days and then gone. Yep, my least favorite one was knowing a movie had come out, but having to wait like an entire actual year for it to maybe possibly show up in the theater. Communication. I have been in so many situations, setting up last minute get-togethers, and thought Jesus this would be literally impossible without cell phones. So many scenarios especially when traveling or meeting up or changes to plans. That, and God bless Google Maps. Making plans with other kids was so difficult. Say there's a movie you want to see. Friday night, you look in the paper to find out when it's playing. Talk your parents into letting you go and giving you the $4 or whatever it was for the matinee, and then call your friend on the landline and say what your parents agreed to. Then they hang up and go talk to theirs. They call back and say their parents won't drive them across town to the movie theater your parents said okay to, but they'll take them to the other one that's closer to their house. You hang up again and talk to your parents. They say why don't you go to the one that's near our house? You explain. They say, okay, fine, but we have to leave the house an hour early because they have to, I don't know, go grocery shopping or something. So the next day Saturday and they drop you off there at the movie theater 20 minutes before it starts, and you hang around in the strip mall or whatever it is, and just barely manage not to spend your $4 so you can still afford your ticket. And finally it's time for the movie to start only your friend isn't there. So either you go by yourself or you keep waiting outside the theater. Either way, friend never shows. Parents pick you up 4 hours later. It has started raining in this time, and the theater manager won't let you back in unless you buy another ticket and ask if you had fun with your friend. You get home and call them up, intending to be all what the heck, only your friend's parent answers and says friend can't come to the phone right now. So at this point you know that your friend is in deep shit, but not precisely why. Monday at school you find out that friend's parents said they could go if they did their homework first, and what do you know? Their parents actually had the nerve to check. They tried to call you 10 minutes before the movie started to tell you they couldn't come, but for some reason, you weren't home, and that was the last phone call they were allowed to make until they really finished their homework, which happened that morning on the bus. Then the next weekend you try to make plans with your friend again, and your parents say, but you just hung out with them last weekend. It was a nightmare. This is beautiful. Did we live the same life? I think we all did. You're bored and want to hang out with your friend? Go to the kitchen and use the phone on the wall to call his house, which rings on the phone in his kitchen. No one answers because of one of million reasons he is not within earshot of that phone. That's it. You're out of options. Go back to being bored. No, you can get on your bike and ride around, go to the school playground, go to any nearby park, read books or comics, ask your mom to take you to the library. Or just go around to his house, knock on the door and say, can David come out to play? We'll be back before dark. We totally asked if someone could come out to play. Using a typewriter, no editing, copy and paste, moving sentences or paragraphs with a click of a button. I typed my master's thesis on a manual typewriter. However, it was a source of income for people that were good at typing. As someone who is currently writing their master thesis, this sounds absolutely terrifying. I'm guessing you had outlined paragraphs done with pen and paper first. I'm not the person you're asking, but I'm also an old Redditor. Ideally you had to write by hand, in its entirety, any paper or project or article or whatever, until you had it all edited and revised to exactly how you wanted it, then type it. Basically, typing it was just the final step to guarantee legibility and professional appearance. So you wrote and revised and rewrote and revised and rewrote, etc. by hand, as many times as you needed to get to final form, then typed it. According to my mother, yes, she wrote a doctor thesis with a typewriter. I can't even imagine the hassle. If you suddenly wanted to know something like how to say dick in Chinese or what size of boots Napoleon was, you couldn't just Google it and have the answer in 5 seconds. You had to commit to that question, Get a book and hope the info was there, or you found someone who knew about that topic. If you were lucky, your house had an Encyclopedia Britannica and you had so much information at your fingertips. I saw the newest edition of Britannica's status symbols when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. All we had were crappy world books from 1970 or so. We had an encyclopedia set that was bought from a garage sale. Never replaced. We used the same set for anything we needed for school, with trips to the library of course. You had to try to find underwear catalogs to appreciate the idea of a naked girl. Times were tough. JCPenney was top quality porn lol. My uncle did a stint in the chain gang in Georgia. He wanted us to bring him a JCP catalog because you could use the bra section like money. God bless Sears. You have been visited by the toothbrushing papa. Like this video and subscribe to keep your gums clean.